Hey guys, Grand Rising. Hope you're having a great day. So today I am going to be doing like a review of Billy Carson's Emerald Tablet Beginner's Guide, and just gonna do it in a different way. So anyway, I have some tabs. I am majority finished. I still have a few chapters to go. I made it up to chapter 10, the key of mysteries, but there are some points I wanted to highlight in case you were thinking about getting the book, or if you wanted to learn a little bit more about the Emerald Tablets. I'll be doing that kind of like later on as well. So anyway, what I really appreciate about this book is, first of all, the level of detail. Some of it, I'm going to be honest with you, like, I don't know what he's talking about. Like, I'm not necessarily versed in certain sciences at this point. So certain things he says, like, I don't know what he's talking about. But what I really appreciate is that he does a very good job of pointing you to other books, like, and just other things to research. It's very much one of those books that when you start it, it leads you on a trail to all these other options and possibilities of looking up. And I'll be honest, that's a hard thing to do, because most books that I read or listen to or whatever, they're very into hold on one second. Like, they really highlight themselves, and also if they highlight another source, it might be like 3 or 4 sources, and that's like that's what they typically go to, and so you can look at those 3 or 4 sources. But what Billy Carson does a brilliant job of in the Emerald Tablets Beginner Guide is that he really points out where else you can find something. Like, I'll turn to any random chapter, especially in the beginning, any random page, and I'm willing to guarantee you that there's going to be someone on here or someone in here that we can research. Okay, so I turn to page 22, and right here we have 2 people, Sir Francis Bacon and Professor Carl Jung. And then the pyramids, the Great Pyramids, the mystery of the Sphinx. One of the biggest falsehoods about the Aztecs and Mayans. Those are people, those are groups. Teotihuacan, Chichen Itza, Chiquitza, I don't know, but, I never heard of Chichen Itza. I like that name. We go to the next page, and you see there's also pictures in here. I like that there are images too, because I'm a visual learner. So granted, there are even diagrams, and I'm gonna be honest, like, I don't know what these things are saying half the time, or like, because some stuff he says is just so intricate and scientific that it goes shoo right over my head. And then there's other things that are so spot on that it makes sense. And what I also appreciate from this book specifically, and I think Billy Carson in general, he's able to tell you this really, really high level idea or principle, and then breaks it down into one that's a lot more easy to digest, and breaks it down into one that it makes sense. It just makes sense. So I appreciate that. Also, it's just very, very well done. Very, very well done. And it also helps you understand the Emerald Tablets, because honestly, I didn't know what the Emerald Tablets were. Like, I've always listened to it and I knew of them, and I always would like listen to them on an audiobook or on YouTube, to be frank, and I never really paid attention to it, if I'm being frank. Like, I would have it up, but I wouldn't actually be in it. So when I came to this book because I was watching Ashira 7 or a Share Goddess. I was on her a Share Goddess page, and she said that she read this, and she refers to this a lot, not just in her when she literally mentioned it, but also in just the way she does things and like this other content on her channel. It's closely related. She reads a lot of stuff. So anyway, I got into this because Ashira 7. And so basically, and I had already known about Billy Carson as well, but it never resonated. And honestly, things resonate when you're ready. Like they say, when the student is ready, the teacher shall come, or something like that. And that's been my experience, from Florence Scovel Shen to Reverend Ike to Latoya Okia on YouTube to Ralph Smart on YouTube to Mark Houghton on YouTube to Macola what's his name? Dr. Macola something Abdullah, the African rabbi, Napoleon Hill. It goes on and on and on. Tony Robinson, E.T., like at Eric Thomas. At each point in life, when you're ready, the teacher will appear, whether they're currently on this plane of existence or not. Rev Ike, Florence Scovel Shen, Napoleon Hill have long ago moved on from this realm, apparently, even though time, we're learning or learned or know in some regard that time is an illusion of the imagination. It doesn't actually exist. It's just something that we use. It's a state of measurement as far as I'm concerned. And then others will say like, it's because we're in the third dimension. Who knows? But we do know that, or we believe everything's happening at the same time. And I have had some interesting experiences in regard to that recently. But anyway, so there's a few points that I want to highlight, because if you're, like I said, if you're considering purchasing, or I just think it's just really interesting. So there's something that Toth mentions, and also this thing, before you even get into reading the Emerald Tablets, first of all, it was a bit of a challenge for me, because I have not been a reader up to this point, okay? This is, to be frank, the second book that I'm actually reading, okay? The first book I read was about, I'm not going to tell you, but it was something else. I'm not going to say that right at this point. But this book is going to be the second book. And, I got great grades in school. So I just knew how to read the room. Like, I wouldn't necessarily read the books, but I was always answering questions, and I was always participating. And like, I hope there's no children watching this. Anyway, this is just what I did. So I would just wait for other people to answer first. And like, once one, or the more people that could answer, the better, because then I would understand what the book was about. This was only in classes that we had to do a lot of reading. If I didn't feel like I was always finding loopholes. So I would wait until a couple of people answered, and then I would hear all their thoughts, and then I would come up with an answer that differed from one point, that was similar to another, and I would just give my opinion on what they already answered. And it was really insightful. So the teachers always just assumed that I was reading the books, but I wasn't, because I used to hate reading. And I am dyslexic, so words, especially like certain fonts, are challenging. Certain fonts are more challenging than others to read. So I used to hate reading because I thought I wasn't necessarily good at it, even though I had a very high comprehension. And also, my brain is super busy. So getting my brain calm enough to sit down and read has been challenging up to this point. And I never found anything that I thought was interesting. Those books that we were reading in like elementary school, I didn't care anything about those topics. I was bored, and I have a very active mind. So if I'm not fully engaged in what it is, I'm not going to do it. And I might start causing mischief like a little puppy dog. So, now I've since evolved for the most part, but like, if it wasn't engaging to me, if it wasn't something that I cared about, I was going to get my grade later on. I was going to get my grade. But like in middle school, I didn't care. I was not doing very good in middle school. I was doing very good energetically, but my grades, like they were slipping, and it was because I was bored. It was because I wasn't being challenged. It was boring. And if when things are boring, a lot of times super hyper intelligent creatures, because I'm very smart, and it's not just me, they're like, when smart intelligent beings are bored, they start to be mischievous. That's why, like, the smarter puppies, you have to keep them engaged. It's the same thing with young people. It's the same thing with people in general. You have to keep beings engaged. You have to be challenging. You have to keep things engaged, or they'll start to divert. That's just what happens. And that's how you know someone's smart. So, when young people are acting up or bad or something, it's not that they're bad all the time. Maybe they're just not engaged. And or the worst acting children are the ones that got the most going on at home. So maybe stop being judgmental and being a jerk and try to figure out what they got going on that's causing them to act this way. How about that? How about don't judge? How about help? Anyway, so I'm on page 79 in case you want to follow along. And I'm just going to read some parts that I highlighted because, you know. So, he who knows the fire that is within himself shall ascend unto the eternal flame, eternal fire. Fire, the inner fire, is the most potent of all force, for it cometh all things and penetrates to all things on earth. All eyes do not see with the same vision, for a man is burning bright through the night. So all let me read that all eyes part, because that's interesting. So all eyes do not see with the same vision, for to one an object appears of one form and color, and to a different eye of another. So also the infinite fire, changing from color to color. It is never the same from day to day. So every single day is a new day. Every single day is a new opportunity to do something. So what I was saying though, like about the tablet, and we'll dive into that, but this is also important when you're reading the book, is like it takes a minute to get to the information. Okay, but I had heard something a couple days before that was like, anything worth having, like you have to get through a certain portion till you get to the what's supposed to be there kind of thing. Like you got to get through the intro for you to really understand the concepts. So I will say it was relatively exhaustive for me personally to get through the information to get to the knowledge, if that makes sense. And so I forced myself to read all of the prerequisite, all of the information that came before what I was looking for arrived. And I must say it certainly helped, and it gave the rest of the information like a background. So it was easier, I believe, to interpret than if he just went straight to it. However, it was tedious for me because I am becoming a reader. I've always been like into knowledge and like documentaries and audio books now. And now I'm evolving to reading because it's interesting. And though it was challenging for me to get through the research part, even though I found it to be fascinating because I like wrote down some notes, and then I wrote down like points that I thought were like things that I didn't know about. I wrote it down. So like now I have an exhaustive list of things that I can research and create content on and things like that. So it was worth it, but it was challenging for me. Okay. And like I said, I had just heard that certain informations, especially like certain types of information, you have to get through things and then you can get it. So I went through the more painful aspect for me. But in each portion, I learned something new. It was just, like I said, for me personally, reading is what it is. But this book is fascinating. And before reading this one and the other one that I read before this, I didn't understand when people were like, I read X amount of books in a day, or I read this many books. You're like, how do you do that? Or like, I read this many books in a week, because to me, I barely read a full book period in years. So I didn't understand, like, why would, like, not even, it's like, why would you do that? Like, for what reason? Or like, man, you lying. But I read this, I probably would have finished it, but at the end of the day, 2 days of like reading and I'm here, and then like and working, and like this is like reading at nighttime, because it's fascinating. So I'd say like maybe 3 days. So I'll probably be done this in a week, because I purchased it earlier this week, or like a little bit before that. So anyway, it's just interesting that how it's all done, and like he also like touches on what a possible interpretation of what the Emerald Tablets are speaking on in the beginning and in the end. However, I would just caution you also to remember that even though we're reading this text and, he has created a lot of great things, just remember to also have your own thoughts as well. Because what can happen is we as a species, myself included, tend to deify people that can do this skill of breaking down information and feeding us. We have a tendency to deify people that feed us, that give us stuff, that feed into our ideas and our principles and our thoughts, and teach us new things, and have something that have aspirational lives. We tend to deify those people, meaning like see them as separate from our possibilities, or see them as, oh my gosh, they're so amazing, they're so great, they're so this, they're so that. And so I would caution you, and then that reflects in our understanding of what they're saying, and we take it all, and everything has to be true. Everything that they're saying is fact. Everything from the Emerald Tablets to Billy Carson, from Rev Ike to Florence Scovel Shinn. It's all of it. So it's important to still have that level of separation to recognize, okay, this is another person's perspective of another person's perspective, because the Emerald Tablets that he's referencing were created by, I forgot the guy's name, but it's something like McDowell or something like that. It starts with it's like an MD name. But anyway, if you look up, you can even Google it, who wrote the Emerald Tablets in like 1929 or some time like that. And that was another person's interpretation of the information. And then there's even skepticism on if he actually went to Egypt, or if he traveled in what they call the astral plane. So all of it is subjective. It may or may not be true. It may or may not be real. So take it with a grain of salt. Understand that it is very, very impactful, vital information, and also understand that it is someone's interpretation of someone else's interpretation of something that may or may not have actually happened. In the way, it's someone's interpretation of someone else's interpretation of someone else's interpretation of what is possibly going on in this universe. So that's what I mean. It does not mean, though, that the information is not valuable. It does not mean, though, that the information is not applicable. And it also doesn't mean that the information is not accurate. It also doesn't mean that the information is accurate. It's subjective. It's one of those things where you take what you can get from it and then apply it where you need to. and also recognize what it is. And recognize that most of the information that we currently have is someone else's interpretation of someone else's interpretation of someone else's interpretation, giving us their opinion of all of those other interpretations. So it's not firsthand news. Even the emerald tablets, because originally, before I knew anything, I assumed that the emerald tablets were like, I didn't even know what it was. I didn't even know. I just thought, like, maybe it was something like the Bible, and like, how people think that the prophets wrote the Bible. I thought that whoever wrote the emerald tablets that we pay attention to now, like, I wasn't that invested to think anymore, because I just, I was like, oh, perhaps this is a direct interpretation from something on a wall or something. I don't know. But some people say that he actually went there in the boat. He went to Egypt. He found the pathway through the Amenti temple or something, whatever. He like went there and no, he found the tablets in like South America, and then he got in a boat and took them to Egypt, or some variation. Then there's another version that he meditated, and in a deep meditation he astro traveled. And I don't even really know what astro travel is. Like, what's the difference between astro traveling and meditation? So that probably will be what we do our research on. So anyway, on next. So anyway, so I'm just kind of like, okay, whatever. But the point is, when you move in that way, like, you don't really know what the source of information came from. We have no idea. So I'm just saying, keep that in mind. So, like, don't go changing your whole life in an instant because this is what, this, I gotta follow everything in here. Because also where you are right now, your interpretation of what is being said might be skewed based on where you are in life right now. You always hear where you are. So one day you might, that's why, like I said in another video, like, that's why when you read when you read something again, you catch something different. Or when you watch a show for the second time, you're like, dang, I didn't even see that last time. I didn't even see that. It's because you see what I'm saying? It's another interpretation of it. You even interpret things differently from day to day, from minute to minute, from moment to moment. One day you might watch a super, super intense motivational speaker like E.T. Eric Thomas and get offended. And the next day you might watch E.T. and be like, dang, G, like, he was talking some real stuff. And that's what that spot is talking about that I highlight. All eyes do not see with the same vision. For one, an object appears of one form and color, and to a different eye of another, so also the infinite fire. So also the infinite possibilities. You don't know what that person perceived from when you said something. So all changing from color to color is never the same from day to day. For example, when I used to work for a technology company, and that's not important, but I'm just trying to set the story so you can understand what was happening. So there was this fellow. You know what? Actually, I'm not going to get into all that because he's a decent dude, but this particular thing he did rubbed me not the best way in the world. So what happened was he. So I let me get the story together. So we all got into the office and he was late. And so apparently he was late because something happened to his car. And so I was like, oh man, I texted him, like, I hope you get that figured out. Like, that sucks. And he came in like a couple hours later, and I had my headphones in. I was working. I was in my own world. And so this guy comes, he like taps my shoulder. And he like says, hey, Yana, something like that. And he's just like rambling. But I had my headphones in, so I just like, hey, glad to see you made it in, da-da-da. Turn around. Keep doing it. Got my headphones in. And he like tapped me again. I turn around, I'm like, yes. Like, what can I help you with? Like, what's going on? But I wasn't even in that mood. I'm in that mood now because, like, my interpretation's different because I knew what's coming next. But in the moment, I was like, yeah, what's up? And then I heard him, like, talking, like, moving his neck around, saying my name. And I was like, what is happening? So I took my headphone out and I heard him say, like, yeah, well, what was I supposed to do? Wait on the side of the road? I thought he was joking. It's like, ah, ha, ha. I mean, da, da, da. So I turn around and he's still going on. And then I realized, oh, this is serious. And back then I wasn't as emotionally evolved, but I still was like, whatever, dude. And so I'm turning around, I'm like, oh, he's serious. And so he said it again. He kept saying it like he was getting riled up about it. And mind you, no one else asked him how he was doing. It was just a group chat. No one else said, oh, is this what's happening? Nobody else cared if he made it there or not. I am the only one that texted even a monochrome of concern for his well-being on the side of the road in Atlanta, on the highway or wherever he was. He was on some major road. I was the only one that cared enough to text. And instead of being grateful or showing what I attributed or what I associated as a appropriate emotion to that, he starts going off because I asked him. And so he is like chopping off at the bits, doing all this stuff. And so I just turned around and I said, because he was like, well, what was I supposed to do? He kept saying it over and over again. What was I supposed to do? Just wait on the side of the road? I was supposed to wait. And I just said, well, that would have been your decision. And then I turned around, put my headphone back in and kept working. And that was the end of it. Because it takes two to tango. I've noticed that some people, especially, I've noticed two things. The farther you go back in the generations, the more likely that someone had some form of extreme trauma. The further you go back in relative time, like the generations back seem to have more severe traumatic experiences than their more current generations. So there's that. And then secondly, everyone interprets things differently. And it's not my business. It's not my job to interpret something differently for you. I'm not your radio station. I'm not that to you. I'm myself. So it takes two to tango, and there are beings out here who just want to argue with someone because they know, okay, well, this person cares, so let me go and attack them because the last person that I cared about hurt me. So I recognize this sign, and it's nothing wrong with this. This is just what some people do. I recognize this as a possible attack, because any other time that I've experienced someone that I perceive to care about, they've hurt me. So this person must be trying to hurt me. That's what this person is doing. So I'm going to go on the attack. Because what we also know is, like, from our perspective, if you have experienced someone, if you always, every single time you raise your hand, if someone slapped you, and you would not raise your hand again. You would never raise your hand. You would never want to give your advice. You would never want to speak. You would never want to. So then if you're around someone who actually does want to hear what you have to say and is like, okay, well, raise your hand and tell me, raise your hand, you would go on the attack because what are you trying to do? You're trying to hurt me? That's what you would be thinking, because all your other previous experiences have shown you that if you raise your hand, you get a slap. So why would you ever raise your hand again? And anyone that's trying to make you raise your hand must be trying to slap you. They must be trying to get you. That's what must be happening here. But that's not the case. That's not always the case. Sometimes someone really does just want to see what's going on. Someone really is just concerned about you. But also recognize that that's how some people are, and it's not your job to teach them any other way. It's not your responsibility to reinterpret how someone interpreted your caring. You can if you want to, but it's not your responsibility to do that. It's that person's responsibility to learn how to be aware of what's going on within their system so that they can properly associate emotions with their current status. It's not your responsibility to tell someone how to do something, but you can. You absolutely can, and it would be nice to in some situations, but sometimes, like with that situation, it was best to just not engage, to disengage, because it takes two to tango. And because it's still represented as an emotion of caring, they'll try to do it more to get a reaction out of you. There are so many beings, like some family members of mine also included, that is their love language, is toxicity. And that's okay for them. That's something in my eye. But it doesn't mean that I want to deal with it. It's like one piece of hair right here. It doesn't mean that I want to deal with it. There we go. Just because that's how you operate doesn't mean I want to be associated with that. Great. If that's how you operate, fantastic, fabulous. And that's fine. I'm not mad at you. I'm not angry at you. And no, I'm not going to engage. Absolutely not. I'm not going to engage because I don't have to. I have the authority and the power within myself to decide or determine if I am going to associate or engage with this being at this particular moment in where we are. And I can say no, or I can say yes. I can say, you know what? You want to get rowdy? Let's get rowdy. Because I can get rowdy. I'm not like a physical, but like I can get rowdy. And though I don't have to if I don't want to. You know, one valuable thing that I have learned throughout my existence thus far is that you don't have to be mad at someone just because they're mad. Because half the time they're not even mad at you. They're just mad at a situation. They're angry about something, and it's reflecting in all things. But I don't have to be mad just because you're mad. I don't have to get up there just because you are. That's your business. That's your prerogative. If you want to be stressed out, that's on you. But I don't have to feel that way just because you feel that way. I don't have to experience that just because you're experiencing that. That has nothing to do with me. If you are who you are and if you're doing what you're doing, that's on you. That has absolutely nothing to do with me. If you want to do what you want to do that. But me, I'm going to be over here. I'm going to be doing my own thing. Don't compete. Because that is what people do when they want to assert their dominance or assert their authority over you. They'll try to like argue with you because someone that they do not have the capability or courage to stand up against has said something to tick them off. And so now they're carrying that weight. And so because they feel like they have lost the power in a situation, now they're walking around trying to find someone that they can exert their authority over and try to feel like, well, yeah, I told her. And then it moves on and then it passes. And then that next person engages with them and now they might feel defeated or they feel superior. So now they, you ain't gonna do that to me. And then it's the dominant, it's just like goats hitting each other in the head. And, you know, I used to be someone that was like, well, you ain't gonna disrespect me, boo-boo. It ain't gonna happen. Okay. And now I realize I don't have to feel disrespected just because this person did something that on principle was foul, on principle was rude and disrespectful, doesn't mean that I have to be disrespected. And like people like to show out in front of people. Oh, well, let them do that. I don't have to engage with you. But also if it's someone that's trying to bully you, sometimes you do need to out crazy that MFer. Sometimes you do gotta, all right now, I might not win, but I ain't gonna be the only one effed up. Okay? I ain't gonna be the only one effed up. come over here. I don't know how, but I know that. I'm wilding out on you. I'm wilding out on you. It ain't gonna be no. This ain't what you want for real. This ain't what you want for real. And you just gotta emanate that energy. And then beings be like, oh, this is crazy. Okay, let me go find an easier target. You go do that. You go do that. We crazy around these parts. So, and though, balance. It's about understanding what's the appropriate time for this response. What is the appropriate time for, you know what, I'm just disengaging. And when is the appropriate time to boss up energetically and be like, this ain't what you effing want. Because I'm crazier than I look. And it can get menacing out this bee real quick. And then also, you cannot even do that and just, have that energetic boss. That's what I'm talking about. It's an energy thing. You can do that, and then the thing is gone. It's out of your sphere. It's vanished. It's possible. So I just think, be in every moment and evolve so that you can learn, okay, is this an appropriate response to this? And pay more attention, be more aware of results of people, not just what they say. Because some people are so versed in telling you what you want to hear and making you feel good in the moment that you don't even realize the results of their actions and their impact in your experience. Their results since you started being with this person, this fool, you no longer feel comfortable in your home. Since you started engaging with this person at work, you now dread going to work. That is the result. So what people might say or do, or how flattery, people that flatter you want something from you. Flattery, I have observed, is the way for people to get in. And people that flatter a lot want something. It's one thing to compliment and leave an authentic truth and say like, well, hey, I like this, or blah blah blah. But people that consistently flatter you, from what I've observed, they want something. So be aware of that. And it's okay to establish boundaries with people. It's okay to establish boundaries with your manager or your boss, whatever. It's okay to establish those boundaries. Boundaries are okay to have. And it's okay to establish boundaries with your parents. It's okay to establish boundaries with your siblings. It's okay to establish boundaries with your children. It's absolutely okay to establish whatever boundaries you need to establish to keep yourself in the proper state of mind. It's okay to establish boundaries with yourself. It's okay. It's okay to establish boundaries with your significant other. You must establish proper boundaries. It's not even just okay, it's an absolute necessity to establish proper, healthy boundaries with every single being in your existence so that you can operate at your optimal frequency, so that you can operate at your optimal programming. So that's all I wanted to say. Yeah, please comment. Let me know, because I also do research videos. So if there's something that you are interested in, comment. Let me know. Yeah, you can subscribe if you feel compelled to. I'll as well watch some more. What else was I gonna say? I think that's it. See you.